In this video, I want to answer the question, what is Scrum? Scrum is the most widely used agile methodology for project management. It takes its name, well, originally from the game of rugby, but that metaphor of a scrum in rugby was taken by two Japanese business authors called Takeuchi and Nonaka, who wrote about product development and used the metaphor of passing the ball and scrums. And that got picked up by agile project managers as a useful metaphor, product management being in some ways related to software development, and they came up with a methodology. And at the heart of the Scrum methodology are time-constrained or time-boxed iterations of activity during which we pull down a requirement, we design a solution for that, we implement the solution for that, we test it, we stabilize it, we demonstrate it, and then we move on to another iteration. These iterations are called sprints. So in each of these sprints, a new set of functionality is defined, developed, tested and proved. And to do all of that, there are three roles in the Scrum methodology that collectively fulfill the role of the project manager. And the first of these is the product owner. The product owner is responsible for the business perspective on the project and the business requirements in specifying the products that are going to be produced, and is also responsible for working with users and customers and clients to not only define what's needed, but to also prioritize and sequence that development. Then we've got the project team. These are the people who are going to do the work, they're going to do the development, and they tend to work in a non-hierarchical way, allocating roles amongst themselves. The final role is that of Scrum Master, and this is the role that is most closely resembled. The final role is that of Scrum Master, and this is the role that most closely resembles the traditional project manager. The Scrum Master is responsible for the project process, for liaising amongst the team and the product owner to make sure that progress is made. There are a number of roles that the Scrum Master has. They access the resources that a team needs, they act as a coach to the team, they take the lead on reporting, and of course they help clear roadblocks, although it's the team working together that actually solves the problems that they encounter within the project. The Scrum Master tends to focus more outside the project. So, how does a Scrum project work? It starts with a vision of the process or the product or the technology that the project needs to produce. The product owner will facilitate the definition of the goal and the objectives for the project, and will start to work with stakeholders on the key capabilities that the project needs to be able to demonstrate. Out of that, the team develops what's called a product roadmap, which sets out all of the project requirements and starts to sequence them and put a schedule against them. From there, the team goes on to create a release plan, which starts to schedule release of functionality against time. Functionality that hasn't yet been released at a specific point of time is known as the product backlog. And then each release will have a number of sprints, which are typically from 2 to 6 weeks. 4 weeks is a typical length for a sprint, and each sprint will tackle a part of the product backlog and to create a sprint backlog. Each release consists of a number of sprints, and these sprints typically last anything from 1 to 4 weeks. It can be longer. Most often it's around about a fortnight. And each release deals with a part of the backlog. Each sprint works on its own sprint backlog for the sprint period, which, as I say, is typically a fortnight. And it starts with a sprint planning meeting, which primarily determines which part of the product backlog the sprint is going to draw down into the sprint backlog. Throughout the sprint cycle, there are daily Scrum meetings. At the end of the sprint, there's 2 meetings, but the first is a sprint review meeting, where the team demonstrate the working product to the stakeholders and significantly to the product owner. The second meeting is the sprint retrospective, which is an opportunity for the team to discuss the experiences they've had and to share the lessons that they've learned along the way so that they can improve their process for the next sprint. Scrum embeds the idea of continuous improvement, which is central to the principles of Agile Project Management. Today, as I'm recording this, Scrum is by far and away the most commonly used Agile Project Management technique, and given the increasing prominence and prevalence of Agile Project Management, it's increasingly important that you as a project manager understand the basics of how Scrum project management methodology works.